I don't need the welfare to give me nothing. I don't need no formative action. I'm a man. I'm not no kid. And bell curve was right. You is useless if you ain't got enough to take care of yourself. Why am I gonna go beg a white man for a job? How come I can't hire him? I'm an American, and I'm not a black American. I'm a Louisiana American, and I get my own business. How did the white man get his business? And the white folks help me. They've been helping me ever since I've been here, and we respect each other. And you gonna tell me that the worst thing ever could have happened to America was that civil right march? That is the worst thing could ever happen. You come along and you doing more than Jim Crow, hanging, and everything else. People like you, because you saying they need this. I don't need the welfare to give me nothing. I don't need no formative action. I'm a man. I'm not no kid. And bell curve was right. You is useless if you ain't got enough to take care of yourself. Why am I gonna go beg a white man for a job? How come I can't hire him? I'm an American, and I'm not a black American. I'm a Louisiana American, and I get my own business. How did the white man get his business? And the white folks help me. They've been helping me ever since I've been here, and we respect each other. And you gonna tell me that the worst thing ever could have happened to America was that civil rights march? That is the worst thing could ever happen. You come along and you doing more than Jim Crow, hanging, and everything else. People like you, because you saying they need this. I don't need the welfare.
All right, there we go. All right, so let me share my screen again. Maybe that was what the problem was. Maybe that's what was preventing my my slides from working. An authentic act is in civil law an act which has been executed before a notary or public officer authorized to execute such functions, or which is testified by public seal or has been rendered public by the authority of a competent magistrate, or which is certified as being a copy of a public register. So when you get a birth certificate or any government document, even a court order of your name change, and you get that authenticated, that is called getting the originals authenticated, which is authenticum. You're getting their originals of what they have on record authenticated. But this meeting is designed for you to create your own records and get your originals and get those authenticated. And depending on what country you're going to, it's going to be an apostille. So any country that's in The Hague is going to be an apostille. Any country outside of The Hague is going to be authentication. Now, the old teachings was make sure you get it authenticated in a country that's not part of The Hague. Well, here's the deal. The documents that now when it comes to their stuff, that might be true. But your stuff, it's not going to matter. Because when you're traveling, you need to have an authenticated document for that country. So if you create your county deed and you want to make that your proof of your birth, right? You're going to say, oh, well, I'm traveling in here. So let's say you're going to, let's see, pick a country that I know is in The Hague. I think the Netherlands is in The Hague. That was part of that recording. You'll get that apostille, and that document becomes a certified or authentic act that can be proven to be authentic. So anything you have on there will be a proven record of yours, private record, that you can submit to any court anywhere to say that this is a fact. That's what when authentication is about, authenticating a fact. And once it's authenticated at the Secretary of State level, it's a fact. It can't be rebutted. All right? Authentication in law of evidence, the act or mode of giving authority or legal authenticity to a statute, record, or other written instrument, or a certified copy thereof, so as to render it legally admissible in evidence. So once you get anything authenticated, go to the process of authentication, it's evidence now. In court, things like that. So let's just say you in a criminal proceeding, minor, serious, and they got your name in all caps there. You know that's not you. Now, if you have your documents authenticated properly, you could put that in evidence to show that what you have here doesn't represent what I have. And if the true party of interest is not there in the court, what happens? Can anybody tell me what happens if the true party of interest is not there? What happens in that court?
Case dismissed.
Okay, before it can get dismissed, what is established?
No jurisdiction.
No jurisdiction.
Yeah. In order for a court to render any competent decisions, it must have jurisdiction. The problem that most people have when they deal with court case, they let the court get them into the jurisdiction. But if I'm coming in and say, hey, I got a debt collection case dismissed just on the fact that the name was not correct. You're like, no jurisdiction, case dismissed. Can't rule. True parties are not here. So it's not whether you did or didn't do something. It's about, do the court have jurisdiction to make decisions? And if I'm establishing, well, this is me, this is what y'all have, unless y'all ready to correct this, then we can't move forward, which they will never correct the all caps name. Not in a criminal case, and not in the child support case, or any case where they're trying to extort you for some money. They could correct it in a debt case, right? They could do that, but here's the thing: when you're dealing with creditors, like third party debt collector, they can always have it in all caps. But if I'm suing John for some money, you'll notice those cases are all in upper and lower. They're not in all caps. When two living people are suing each other, true party interest, the cases is always in upper and lower. But when a creditor is coming after you, he's putting your name in all caps. What he'll do to trick you, he'll send you a letter with your name written in upper and lower when he's trying to get the money out of you before he go to court. All right. What is an apostille? A document used in international law that is issued by a government in accordance with the Hague Convention that certifies that another document has been signed by a notary public. So you can get apostilles are for countries that are part of the Hague 1961 Hague Convention. That's what it is. Simply, that's what it is. All right. Hague Convention certification attached to public documents authenticates origin of document to use abroad. Replaces traditional consular legalization.
Peace. What's up? What's up? It is, as usual, the Truth Tuesday show. Of course, I started a little bit late because I thought I had to take my daughter to her arts class and found out I didn't. So, but I already set it up for 8 p.m. today. And today's topic is about the civil rights movement. Did it destroy the black family structure? Did it help destroy? What was the benefit of it all? And I'm going to pull out some stats of when they did the civil rights movement, when it started, and show you guys our progress since then, since all of this civil rights movement. Y'all have heard me talk about the civil rights movement before, and I think it was one of the worst things that happened in this country because it was all a plot. It was all a ploy. Were black folks, as we describe, I use that word black because that's what most people are familiar with and they associate with, but it's indigenous people of color or the originals. I think it was the worst thing. That's just my opinion. And I got some stats here to back that up. See, the reason why I think it's the worst thing, when you start giving out handouts and then you start making criteria easy for people to get into things, the good intentions that it starts off, it always flips around. Like, if you were listening last week, I played a clip of the interview I did with Dr. Daniels. She was talking about the Ivy League schools that they created, part of the civil rights movement, that they would bring in more minority students into the school. And the stats had showed that the minorities that went to regular colleges or the HBCUs or, the ones that were not as Ivy League were doing better than the ones at the Ivy League. They were doing better. And the ones that did do good at the Ivy Leagues, they had to be hyper focused. And this is basically what she said. And she went to an Ivy League school. She went to one. Like, I believe it was, it created a generation of people who look for a piece of paper to validate them, like college degrees. It made us chase after credibility instead of stability. Right? Because they took all of the no one was going after the trades, the things that we still use today, right? AC, plumbing, electrical, woodworking, carpentry. We still, those things is just as needed now as they were back then. Build anything, time you're building something. If you're building a house, you're going to need electrical, carpentry, with a plumbing, HVAC to put a house together, amongst other things, right? So people started chasing after degrees where they could work in a nice cushy office and look fancy. They wearing fancy suits but not making the money that support a fancy suit. I think I think the whole thing was a psyop, meaning let's create a situation where these group of people that already have been disenfranchised, just make them feel more like a victim and give them something. So now they're chasing after, it's like a mouse trap. And, cartoons, they say cheese, mice like cheese, but really mice like mint peanut, just a little side fact. If you're trying to get rid of mice, you want to trap them, peanut butter. Just a little side note. Cheese. I remember growing up in the projects and we should put out cheese and them things wouldn't even touch it. Peanut butter. It's like you dangled the carrot out there of something fancy and shiny out there, and people chased after it, thinking it was good for them, and come to find out it further distanced the family from each other. Because we had when we had the situation where all we had was each other, we worked as a community. When we allowed outside influences to say they were helping us and we went for that help, like for instance, the whole Rosa Parks sitting in the back of the bus thing, right? And they turned that into a political propaganda. Black folks already had their own bus company. Why? Because they couldn't ride on the other bus that was, for whites only. They had their own forms of they band together and formed their own transportation companies and transported their own people because that's what was going on at the time. Then we fought to get on, instead of fighting to stay on our people's equipment, we fought to get on someone who didn't want us there in the first place, equipment or transportation. And the more we fought for that, the less we wanted to be on our own people's transportation. And that put them out of business. And for life of me, I never could figure out why you want to eat in a restaurant where people don't like you and don't want you there, and they go prepare your food in the back and they can do anything with you and you want to eat that. Why? I don't get that. I think, to tell you the truth, I think that was more television than truth. Than that actually being around. Maybe in a few cases. But I think television made us think that we were dumb enough to go into a restaurant and want to eat somewhere that people didn't like us. I just can't believe we were that crazy. But let me put up the number for you to call in if you want to share in the conversation. Let me find it. All right, that's the number to call in. I think the access number is different. Let me get that for you. Um, the access number is 239-7048. I'm going to change this here. Where's the text? It's okay. 239-7048. Save. All right, there it is on the screen. That's the number. That's the show ID, 239-7048. Or the access code. When they say the access code. So, yeah, like I was saying about restaurants, I would never eat in a place I'm not welcome. Why would I even want to give them my money, right? That don't mean. I think Hollywood had a lot to do with our perception of what really went down. I think so. I think, yes, bad things happened back in those days, but at the same time, to keep the division going, they hyped it up through Hollywood and different news stories. Like every year, they talk about how people when they desegregation of the schools, they show these images of white people being so hateful towards these young people, spitting on them and doing all of that things. And we have to think about this. Maybe that's true, right? But was that happening in all around the country, or was it just happening there? So what it does, it put an image of your mind to hate people or white people in general, because you see these things, right? But let me tell you just my experience. And I'm not saying racism and playing all that down. Yes, there was some very hateful things that happened in this country and the culprits were white folks. That has happened. But in my 55 years of living, I used to sell door to door for Time Warner Cable, sell cable door to door. I used to knock on doors to get people to buy cable. And of course, they didn't give me just black territories to work. So I had to go wherever they sent me, that's where I went, right? Now, this is a two-part story because I'm going to tell it from just a racial perspective and a religious perspective at the same time. My experience. So I went into what we call our neighborhoods for the most part. And the problems I had in that was everybody was trying to steal the cable and get over there. And they didn't want to buy the cable. They didn't want to buy it. They didn't want to do it the right way. So, how I would get them to buy, I would just disconnect them and then sign them back up. And of course, a lot of times they had bills that they didn't pay, so couldn't sign them up because they owed money, right? I'm just telling you my experience in the hood. I used to go into these neighborhoods when they was assigned to me and find all the illegal cable and just shut it off. And they used to come out wanting to fight. Now, where I just tell you the territories I used to work. I used to work in the Georgia area, Lithonia, Stone Mountain, those areas. And I was I was I planned my disconnects. I do it on an early Saturday morning when those kids are watching the cartoons and they using the TV as a babysitter. As soon as I shut it off, those kids start screaming. So that was an incentive for them to get the cable turned on. Whether they paid the bill, that wasn't my problem. That was, that this is when I was working with Comcast in Georgia, because Comcast is in Georgia. So, then in South Carolina, I was working with Time Warner. And so I'm talking from two different states where I did this. And I'm just giving you my experience. In the hood is where I had all of my problems. I had guys want to fight me. I just say, hey, listen, that's not in your best interest to fight over some cable. And they thought better of it. There was times where the cops had to be called, but hey, I earned my respect in the hood because I grew up in the hood. I grew up in one of the roughest neighborhoods in the Bronx, Edenworld Projects. I started out there. I didn't grow up there. I mean, all the way, my early toddler life, I lived there. And then we moved to Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. So danger I was not a stranger to danger. So, and I would get the most hard time out of my own people. Even when I didn't work in the hood, I had the better middle class neighborhoods that were predominantly people of color. I would get the most hard time out of them. Now, let's switch it up. When I went to the white neighborhoods, or what they would call the redneck neighborhoods with the Confederate flags flying everywhere, most people probably would be intimidated. I wasn't. Listen, what could I be intimidated about growing up in the hood and I've seen people get shot, walk, just people with big long machetes trying to cut each other up. And this is hood stuff, right? So I go to Confederate neighborhoods or neighborhoods that Lexington, South Carolina is considered by most black folks um to be a racist area because it's predominantly white and this, that, and the other. It's a Republican district. And all of the black people that grew up there always complained about Lexington. And this is where I was selling cable. And I go door to door. And I'm not talking young people, like older people that were during the time of the civil rights movement and, may have saw, maybe participated in some lynchings. I don't know. They would invite me in. And sweet tea is a thing of the South, right? South Carolina. Sweet tea. You want some sweet tea? It's hot out there. Come on in. And sit down at their table. My own people wasn't doing that. So sit at the table, we talk about cable, they buy it, and they show me their grandkids' picture and talk about the family. Because in the South, I had to learn something about being in the South. In New York is get straight to business. What are you here for? What do you want? What can how much it's gonna cost? Get straight to business. No small talk. In the South, I had to adapt. You need to have some small talk with you. You need to learn that. If anybody, just advice, if you ever move to the South and you're going to do sales or anything, small talk goes a long way in the South. Not in the North, it don't. But in the South, it goes a long way. Just making observation. Hey, who's that in the picture who's got the uniform on? You just start talking. And it changed my perspective. Because when I was intimidated a little bit going in, thinking about it, like, okay, these people gonna buy for me, this and that. But I had to shake that off because I grew up in an environment growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. You saw a lot of interracial marriages, and we had a few in the congregation we went to. And that's the interracial relationships is a thing, or is common, not common in Jehovah's Witness, and in the teachings in that faith is not about colors. It's about everybody working together for one cause. So that religion also kind of primed me to be able to move in different cultures easily. So yeah, so I go to their homes. They would invite me in, and this is not once, twice, just all over. And then when I done with them, hey, go see such and such down the road. They'll call them. Hey, Akeem's here. He just gave us this good price. Can he come see you? Not only did they do business, they sent me more business. You see? We'll get back to the civil rights thing in a minute. I'm just giving you my experience in all the years that I've been on this earth, 55, that I've been breathing, heading into 56. That's why I could relate to that video I showed with the guy was talking about we work together. I can relate to what he's talking about. Even when I lived in New York, I'll get back to the South again. When I lived in New York, the very first person who gave me an opportunity at the Commodities Exchange Center outside of the job I had a low paying job, and his name was Frank Belcastro. We called him Frankie. Italian. Italians and blacks in New York did not get along. That was the thing, right? But he was Italian. He came up to me, hey, you want a job? You can come work for me. My first opportunity as a what was the title of that job was commodities clerk. Like I was his clerk, meaning I was in charge of all of his trades, making sure his trades that he did for the day was correct and his books were balanced. No experience. And now I worked in a place, World Trade Center is predominantly white males in there, right? And where I worked in the commodities ring. And I was the only black guy that was in that ring. It was white. All the rest of the guys that worked with me was white in the ring. And he came to me and said, "Hey, you want to come work for me? Because I see you come to work every day and you're here early." I feel like I can depend on you, right? Now he had another clerk working with him before he hired me. But he hired me because the clerk he had was he was privileged. And when I say I'm not talking white privilege, I'm just saying he was privileged. He was the nephew of Dan Marino, Miami Dolphins. He was his nephew. That was his nephew. So he was there because his parents needed him to do something. And I think about my life and all. When I tell these stories, I start recalling the type of people the circles I was in coming out of the hood. So, like I was reading George's messages here. George, he's put a lot of messages. I'll go through them and talk about them and what he's saying, because this is what's causing me to say what I'm saying. So that was an Italian man who gave me my opportunity on the trading floor. And I never forget there was a guy named Joe V that worked for the exchange with us. He was an Italian dude. And he used to say the most racist things, but he jokingly racist things, right? And we all thought this guy was racist, right? And maybe he was a little bit. I don't know. Or maybe he just was insensitive. So they were looking to hire somebody for the commodities exchange. But I'm telling you, if you show up and show yourself to be reliable, it doesn't matter what color your skin is. Out of all the other guys, this guy Joe V, who I thought he was just, as he used to say, at this time when people said racist things, you really didn't have a outlet to go to complain and get things taken care of. You just heard it and you moved on. Like when people come up to you and say, "Oh, you're all right for a black guy," I've had that said to me. I'll go back into that story. Someone said that to me, but so they was like, "Man, we got to hire somebody this," and then Joe V looks at me, "Hey, hire him. He's here every day." This is the same guy that made all kind of racist jokes. Like everybody was standing around. Now, one of the guys, the one who had the decision making power, was a black dude. And he's looking around trying to find somebody to hire, like who he wanted to pick and this and that. And Joe V says, "Mike, hire him. He's here every day." And he tried to act like he didn't hear Joe. He tried to play it off. And then Joe said, "Mike, Joe V said, you effing heard me. Hire him. He's here every day. Yeah, at least you know he'll show up for work." So back to the South. And I told you I would talk about this would not only be about my experience as a salesman on just a color line or what we call color, but also on the religious line. So I would also knock on people's doors of different religious backgrounds, Muslim, Jewish, just all different faiths, right? And just because somebody, they do have dark-skinned Jews, I just want y'all to know that. And people from other foreign countries who had different upbringings and stuff like that, I would knock on their doors too. Now, the places where I felt most welcome was your foreigners from the Middle East, Somalians, just that anything mostly outside of this country. Whenever I knocked on it, these people brought me into the home. And if they were from the Middle East, something like that, and I said, "Hey, my name is Akiem," oh, that just right there, I was guaranteed getting in that door because my name was Akiem. Oh, brother, you know what your name means? Come on in. And just a side note, I also noticed something else about the Middle Eastern men and women that didn't line up with the news. Whenever I was selling services to people from the Middle East, it was the woman with a covered up face and all who did all the business with me. She did the talking, she did the negotiating, she did everything. Like, I never forget this one Middle Eastern couple. They had a small son. The father was back there playing with his son the whole time. And every now and then she said, before she made a decision on everything, she would walk in, they would talk briefly, and she'd come back, okay, let's do it. But she was the one. I always dealt with the females the when it came to handling business. So this whole thing about they're oppressed over there, I don't know about that. I can't. That didn't seem like my experience when I was in their company. But back to on the religion, people from other different religious backgrounds treated me like family. And then the Christians that were here in this country, they were the hardest to deal with and rude. And most of that treatment I got from my own people. But people who had my same skin complexion, it was from here. So it's time that we stop watching the news and paying attention and stuff. So let's get to this these things here that I these points I wanted to talk about. Um Where's my slides here? All right, so what I did was the question is black family structure progress since the civil rights movement. This is basically the basis of why I'm doing this, just to show you what really happened after that, right? So it says in the 1960s, 70 to 75% of black children lived with both parents. 20% lived with single parent mothers. High marriage rates among black adults. Now in 2020, this is 2020, 38% of black children live with both parents. That's only 38%. So from 70 to 75%, way down to 38%. Over 65% in single mother households. 65% decline in marriage rates. Now, what do you think caused this? I could tell you one thing. I don't think this is the only thing. The government handouts. When you give somebody an incentive, well, they're going to be taken care of regardless if they stay in a marriage or not. They have an option. Oh, I don't have to keep him around and I can go get this help. I don't need him. I remember seeing interview of some 3 young black women who were single mothers, and they was asking them, "What about having a man?" I don't need no man. That's what they were saying. This was in the 70s. No man, tell me, but they had children, and this attitude is still prevalent today. The idea that you don't need both parents in the household, mainly the man. Now, is that a direct attack on a black family? Yes, it is, because it was programmed for these young ladies to believe that. They got the program and then they bought it and they believed it and they lived it out. DJ B Thunder says Claudine, the movie. Yeah. Now, y'all do know the welfare program was never intended for black folks. It was intended to help out white folks who were coming out of the Depression and after the world wars. I think it was World War II. But because of civil rights movement, equal rights and all of that, it allowed us to get it. As soon as we were able to get it, we lost our mind. When I say we lost our mind, we lost our ability to be creative and do business for ourselves. And things like the civil rights movements created an atmosphere of entitlement. You got to give me something because I've had a hard life. The white folks who got it better than us. And I can tell you right now, the stats on welfare is more whites getting that than it is blacks. And from selling cable and from different walks of life, different income levels, white folks ain't doing too much better than us in finances. I know they'll say that, that's a small group. There's some people living in some real bad situations. And I've witnessed it. Poverty is poverty. Okay? Poverty is not going to discriminate. Okay? Over 65% in single mother households, 2020, decline in marriage rates. And what it says, it influenced by incarceration, economic hardship, and policy changes. Economic and educational progress. In 1960s, poverty rate was over 40%. High school graduation, 20%. College enrollment, 10%. Home ownership, 38%. Today, this is an interesting stat. Poverty rate is lower, which is 19.5%. High school graduation, over 90%. College enrollment, 36%. Home ownership, 44%, just 5% higher than. Racial wealth gap persists. But this stat says that we're more educated than ever. But yet, according to the other stat, we have the highest rate of broken homes. Educated, but we're terrible about keeping families together. We got the education, though. What does that tell you? It tells you what I've been saying. Public education is nothing there but to teach you how to be a slave and be divided from your family. They got the education, so that means the education, along with all these other policies, has driven black families apart. See, it's education and it's good education and it's bad education. Because based on these stats, the education they're getting, it didn't help them keep families together. It helped them become good workers. I was watching a little video where a woman was talking about, it was something that Dr. Umar had said about, and he used the term snow bunnies, right? Will find a black man the potential in him, and work with him and help him build up, level up. She will help him level up, and that's why he's with her. And then 5 years later, the sisters see him, oh, he's with a white girl, and they complain, right? Because she found him when he was working towards his success. So one of the comments, the woman said, I'm not helping no man level up. I'm like, wow. But you are helping a man level up. Because when you go clock in on that job, whoever's owning that company, most likely a man, who's running it is more than likely a man, you helping him level up. But at the same time, the man you claim to love, you won't help him level up. See how this system has programmed us to really not work together in close proximity. See, that's programming. That type of mindset is programmed because that same person would get up, clock in every day faithful, come in early, skip breaks to be recognized on that job so that they can get a promotion and level up the boss's bonuses and his bottom line. But when it comes to your own household, that you sit there, you look at this man, you're having children with them, you're not going to help him level up. Then what are you going to do? If you're not going to help him level up, then if you're not helping him level up, you mean you're just doing nothing and you're tearing down. See, that's what I'm saying. The education system is bad because the education system teaches you what? What is the mantra? It says, get a good education so you can get a good job. It never says get a good education so you can take this education back to your community and improve your family. Because if you improve your nucleus, your family, you improve the neighborhood. The reason why you have such bad neighborhoods because the family structure is not good. Values are not being taught. Boundaries are not being taught. So because these kids don't have boundaries, they're doing anything. And these same kids don't have boundaries, are having more children back to back to back to back with no boundaries. And this is why you have situations like Carnival Cruise. Because children are not being taught how to behave or how to present themselves as men and women in public. Because the parents don't do that. So let's keep going here. So we got not over 90% high school graduation rate, but we have very low family stability. Wow. So listening to somebody, we're listening to our authority figures is the school. Because that's what we're listening to because we're getting those credentials, those certificates, those diplomas. Legal and civil rights gains. Civil Rights Act 1964 and Voting Rights Act 1965. Affirmative action increased access to education and jobs. Fair Housing Act 1968. Loving versus Virginia 1967 ended anti-miscegenation laws. Yeah, you got the education, but it didn't help us as a whole. You was able to get into these things that they wouldn't let you in before, but what has it done to your home? Cultural shifts and resilience. Rise of extended and multi-generational households, strong community and church support, media representation improved. Really? Somebody put Cosby Show. Yeah, Cosby Show taught y'all how to go to college. And I'm not against college, but we all know that college teaches you to go be an employee. That's the primary goal. When my daughter was graduating high school, and people would ask me, "What's she gonna do? What's she gonna do?" And I was so tired of that question because I wasn't putting any pressure on her to do anything. If she wanted to go to school, fine. If she didn't, fine. We'll figure it out. They all people were, oh, she got to do something. She got to take care. She got like, listen, she taking care. She got family. She taking care. She good. So when I finally said, oh yeah, she's decided to do a 2-year program for cybersecurity, network security at one of the local colleges here for 2 years. She's gonna do a 2-year program. And, wow, that's great. And what they're really saying, that's great. She's gonna get a job and she can be a slave. Just like, see, when you have these people who have the 9 to 5 wage earner mentality, they love when you join their group. They love it. They happy. And I just sit back, I say nothing, because I understand the mentality. I was like that. No, they don't understand that you can sit there and be creative and make your own money out of thin air. with the ideas in your mind. They don't understand that. Even though I tell them I've been doing it for 10 years. I don't need a civil rights movement. I'm going to make my own way. Hey, if you want to join in, you have a comment, there's the number on the screen. Call it. Keep going. Systemic challenges, mass incarceration, disrupting families, war on drugs, welfare reform impact, disparities in health, housing, education, structural racism, and policy neglect. Yes, mass incarceration. That was a deliberate move to get the man out of the home. Because why? A lot of the crimes that were being committed because the economic disparities, trying to feed his family. War on drugs. Where they police the 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 black neighborhoods harder than they police the other neighborhoods. It's not like white folks don't like drugs. They do. They just weren't being chased down as much as they were in. I'll tell you one thing. When the white folks were coming to get their drugs, they was buying them by the bundles because they had the money. When black folks are getting their drugs, they're buying one at a time because that's what they could afford. Just get enough to get by till they can get the next hit. But I can tell you firsthand, I wasn't always, Akiem L here talking to y'all how to deal with stuff in commerce. I was out in the midst of those streets. When you saw a white person come down to the hood, he got treated like royalty because he coming with the paper. It was no racism when it came to that. He's coming with the big paper because he just want to buy it one time, then he take it back to his hood and he sell it there because the other ones were too afraid to come down and get it. He buy your whole stash out. So even in that situation, there was no racism. Only time you got the racism when the cops came and busted things, they would let the white guys go and take the black guys off the jail. That's a fact. But why do you think they did that? Because it wasn't just white cops taking you off the jail; it was black cops taking people off the jail too. But why? What do you think it was that way? Because their higher ups was telling them to do that. That was the agenda: incarcerate more black people than white people. See, more situations to create divisions where we, on the level where we're not in the positions of authority, we look at each other like you're the problem, when really it's the system that is the problem, who is creating the division between the regular folk. And this is not a new technique. This happened. The reason why this technique is being used today, because it all goes back to the Bacon Rebellion. The Bacon Rebellion, what year was that? It was in 1676. And that's when whites, blacks, people from all different backgrounds banded together against the government. And they almost lost. So when they saw all of these poor folks, because all these people were regular poor folks, paupers, said, we can't have the paupers working together ever again. They almost beat us. So that's where you started to get, that's when white showed up on the scene. And the racial divides showed up on the scene, because what they had to do is create a narrative that one group was better than the other, treat the other group a little better, just a little better than the other, and then they all be fighting each other and they won't pay attention to what we are doing while we make these rules. Like right now, the hot topic is across the board is man against woman or woman against man. That's the newest division tactic right there. Men against women and women against man. And so many people are buying that into that one. And they created laws a long time ago. The child support laws were created to get us right where we are right now. Where you would basically impoverish one parent, enslave him, and they use the taxes. Oh, he got to take care of his kids, and that they shaking, wagging heads. You don't even understand. I had to straighten somebody else about the child support. I said, child support laws is not about taking care of kids. It's about the government making money off of child support orders. But when you don't read these laws, you don't know that. And if you're using the news as your way of knowing what's going on, you're always going to be misinformed. The reason why women get primary custody is not so much that the guy they are their deadbeats, yes. But I'm not even gonna qualify that. The reason why the child support laws and why they mainly give custody to the woman, because they can work the man twice as hard as they can a woman. A woman you put too much pressure on her, she's not gonna handle it like a man. They can work that man to death and keep him impoverished. Now you have constant slaves to the system. He can never come out of that into wealth when most of his check is going into another household while he has to maintain his own household. See, this system is designed to divide the family, as you can see. Yeah, all of this education, and yet we still can't keep a family together. So that means that the programming is designed to do what it's doing. It's working. The background subliminal programming is working. The whole women's rights and equal this and equal that, all it did was create two wage earners in a home that the government can tax. All of these agenda issues that come up are all for creating more revenue for the system. And people buy it. I'm going to make my own money. Yeah, but you're going to be taxed just like now y'all all both are being taxed. And while both of y'all have to work, the government's teaching your kid. how to hate you and not respect you when it comes to education. You know, the last couple of years, the school system been promoting these gender ideologies, trans kids and stuff like that. This is what happens when you hand your children over to bail, aka the government. They will teach them all of the worst teachings, all of the worst information behind your back. The point I'm trying to make is anytime you rely on a system to make decisions for you, it's going to benefit the system and fail you. It's going to fail your family. Hang on. So, all of this independence mindsets, and especially coming from the sisters, how's it working out for you? How's it work? Tell me. Has it improved your situation? No. Because at the end of the day, if this economy collapses right now, if we had a total collapse of society, all you independent sisters, what are you going to do? Are you prepared to defend for yourself? Are you prepared to defend yourself? Because I can tell you right now, you're going to be looking for the next man smoking that could help you. That's just, it ain't nothing wrong with that. That's just in our nature to, you want the strong people. You know, what happens when something happens, somebody come trying to kick your door down, you're going to call the police and you're going to want a man to show up. So don't talk about you don't need no man. Because we do. We need protection. You see, one thing that men do provide is we keep other men in check. Just our mere presence keep other men in check for their perverted desires that they might want to act out on women and children. See, that's why perverts always do their stuff in secret when nobody's looking. Because if a man is standing there, they're most likely not going to try to make a move. So to say that men are not necessary, and you know the crazy thing, have y'all watched the any of the movies lately? There's most of the movies that they make when their father is in there, he's always some type of deadbeat, and somehow he don't have a connection with the kids. The mothers locked him out of the house. They've show these movies where he don't have no access to the kids because the mother say he's not worthy to be there. They don't even really give you context of why. The movie starts out with him not having access to his children. And the mother, he's trying to see, he comes and buy. You ever see the movie? They go buy a toy, then he takes it by the house to give him the toy. And the mother's like, you didn't call before you came. That's programming, y'all. To get y'all to accept that type of behavior. And for women to act it out. Because when you go through the story, it's never really any hard reason why he's even being treated that way. Even the movie Liar Liar with Jim Carrey was like that, right? Just run through the Rolodex of your mind of all the movies you watched in the last 10 years and how many movies had that part of the plot line where the father is excommunicated from the children's life for some mistake he made. Maybe he worked all the time. He didn't spend time. Because I know in the movies I watched, a lot of it wasn't even for any type of abuse. Like he was an abusive person. He just worked all the time. Or he didn't show up to a party on time one time. He just let the kid down. And they gave the woman the power to say whether they can have the father in his life or not. And women are actually living these out. So you want to know where they get these behaviors from? Television. Television has programming. And it has programmed. If you look at the last 20, 30 years, most of what people are experiencing today is basically off of what they saw of TV. We're living out those things. Some people say, well, TV is only writing about real life stuff. No, TV is creating fantasy, and people are watching it and acting that out in real life. It's the other way around. Like in the Tyler Perry movies, right? What was that? There was a movie with I forgot the name of the movie, but it was about a black lawyer who started messing with his white secretary and drug his wife out of the house that she lived in and just put her out without. Now, on a legal level, that's not even possible because you can't just put someone out of a house who lived there. You got to evict them. You have to have good cause. There has to be some type of balance. He just drug her out. He didn't get locked up for doing that. But that's the image that Tyler Perry painted, that black men are capable of being with white women and kicking their black wives out of the house. Now, I grew up, I ain't never seen nothing like that. Other than that's the only place I saw it was on Tyler Perry movie. But now you got, oh, that was a great movie. How great is it when it's portraying a black man dogging out a black woman for a white woman? How's that a great movie? But people, that's great. He made great movies. Let's see more of that dysfunction. See how we're being played? And they use people like us that look like us to play us. So, what do y'all think? Y'all think the civil rights movement helped us or it didn't? What do y'all think? Yo, Diary of a Mad Black Woman. That's what Dax was saying. Yeah, that's it. And he continued to make more movies like that. And then, guess what? She went for the Pookie, the guy that was moving furniture. You know, he's a better guy. So it got, and now you wonder why they go after the guy that's less successful. Because in their mind, the guy with the money is gonna leave him for a white guy, a white woman. All right. All right. Well, let's see what the chat say. Let's go down the chat. There was a lot of stuff being said in that chat. So George said, I'm a 65-year-old white guy, and my dad explained what you're explaining to me when I was a kid. Everybody with their eyes open can pretty much see something weird is going down. Then he said, I was raised in the Deep South by non-racist white parents. They knew what we're talking about back then. We used to all be friends, at least in my life. Well, I would have to agree they had to be friends because my family tree, my great grandfather was white. So they must have been all friends back then. So somehow, and now he not only married one, he was married to one black woman, then he married another one after that. After that relationship didn't work out. So I don't know. Sometimes if you're not there, you really don't know what happened. For some reason, the black people have been targeted, and if nothing else, it's so they can trigger you later to hate all white people. But please don't do that. To me, it's not my fault. We know it ain't your fault. Um, they tr- they well, I think in this, when you look at the history of this country, it wasn't just black folks that were targeted. In the beginning, it was the Irish people. It was a religious thing, Protestant versus Catholicism. So they always picked a group of people to put down and one group of people to elevate. So at this time, Catholicism was elevated. I mean, Protestant was elevating over Catholicism. So Irish people were Catholics. So they targeted them big time. They started off in the old country, which is England and Ireland and places like that. And then to get how they got over here is because they were being treated so bad they would snatch their children off the streets and charge a fee saying, hey, for vagrancy. Say your children are vagrants and we're going to fine them, but you can waive your fine if you go off to the new country, which is where we are now, and become an indentured servant and work your way out, work this debt off. That's how they got over here. And then when they got here, they got treated bad here too. And then eventually, when they saw other opportunities in commerce, they elevated them to a higher status, treated them better, and then started to treat the people of color bad. They did it to the Chinamen too. Same thing. They used to have Chinese men in papers looking like monkeys. Yeah. This country is founded on principles of oppressing one group over another. We just happen to be the new kids on the block. Jason says, peace. George says, my older brother asked me when I was 16, why do white people and black people love each other so much? And I said, I don't know. And he said, because we like to party together. And that was his older brother conversation. I thought that was pretty profound even back then in 1976. I think if we turned off the TVs and just lived our life, most of these subjects wouldn't even exist. That's true. I would agree with that. If we stop watching the propaganda, the programming, we'll live in a bubble of our own worlds and deal with the actual issues that are in front of us, not the ones created for us. Then we will focus more on what the hell is our local government doing and the state government. Absolutely. I agree. I agree with that one. That's unfortunately, it looks like the media will win and mankind will not stand together and love one another because the media said, don't do that. Yeah. This is way I look at that. The media will not win. You can't keep sowing division without that seed that you're sowing coming back to bite you. Eventually, that will change. George had a lot to say. I appreciate your thoughts. So I got to move on to somebody else. Peace, love, prosperity, extreme wealth. Everyone, GJB Thunder. Jody Stickamo says one. Claudine, the movie. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Being educated with bad information. Absolutely. All right. I guess nobody wanted to show. I'm trying to beat this up so we can get more people on that want to share their thoughts. I just have to keep pushing it till it take hold. But there you have it. I don't think the civil rights movement benefited us much. I think it actually pushed us in the wrong direction. As you can see, the stats is there. We're not any better off than we were. We actually worse better in a lot of areas, which is the most important. Our family areas, we're not in a good place. You're not. All right. With that being said, peace, prosperity, extreme wealth to all. You guys have a good night. Peace.